All right, we will be covering some bonus knowledge now for you guys, and there are two things that I would like to point out. The first one is color grade reverse engineering, which means that I can give you an option or a tool that gives you the maximum control about degrading an image manually, not to be dependent on auto match or auto color in Photoshop, which enables you to transport any kind of look to a new image with maximum control, or have a starting base for a creative grading. So let's dive in and switch to Photoshop, and we have this beautiful scene here, which obviously is graded, and I like that color grade, so I would like to be able to transport this to another image with control. So what can I do? Let me first show you what autocolor does, and autocolor is a nice function in Photoshop, this one, to degrade an image. And this is the scene how it might have been when the shot was originally taken. But I'm only able to degrade that image this way, and I am not able to transport this degrade to another image. And there's an option that I can do it manually and revert that curve that I will be producing to transport it to another image. And let me just show you. First thing we need to do is use a threshold adjustment layer, and what it does, it shows me the different tonal values of the image. And so this is the darkest points of the image, and this is the brightest points. And as we can see in the histogram, this image is not having much information in the highlights or in the shadows, so it's rather muted, but I can still find the first darkest spots by approaching the histogram from the left side by just nudging up the arrow keys on the keyboard, and I'm looking for the first area that has some kind of blob and not just single pixels. I guess we will be focusing on an area just there. And let me just go down again to narrow it down to where it is possibly the first point and where the darkest point can be. And to put a point there, I would have to use the eyedropper tool here and push Alt and Shift to place a point. And that is what I'm doing here. So let's approach the highlights, and we can move the arrows right there and search the first blob to appear, and it's possibly up there in the sky, in the cloud. And let's put one more. Yeah, it's exactly here, and we make the point right there. We also would need a midpoint, but let me first show you what we can do with a curve now to degrade this image. We have two options. We can either use that curve in normal mode or in color mode. It depends if we just want to take the color out or the tonal changes as well. So let's start with the normal mode and use the eyedroppers here. So we want to define the black point of the image, and this is going to be right there. And we want to define the white point, which is here. And so we already have a much more neutral image, but we still want to check if we can find the point that is the closest to neutral gray as it can be in what the math says. Wie kann ich das denn sagen? That we find the closest point to neutral gray. Therefore, I will deactivate the curve at first, delete that threshold layer, create a new layer, neutral gray, and therefore I will fill this with 50% gray and set the mode to difference, which first leads to quite a ridiculous look, but we need to create a second threshold layer, and we see that the histogram is only divided into 128 tonal values, and we move completely to the left and start nudging up the numbers, and we search for the first blob to appear, which is possibly the closest to neutral as we can get from a mathematical point of view. And let's see, I guess it's mostly between 7 and 10, so we will check out 8, I guess. So something in this area, we'll put a point here, and we can remove these 2 layers. We don't need them anymore. And we can activate our curve again, and we can now try to put the neutral point where we just measured it to be. And so by doing so, we degraded the image as well. And now the thing we need to do to make this applicable to a new image is to invert that curve. And therefore, I will call this one degrade. I will copy that grade, and I will now start inverting the curve, which means that I will go to the red channel. I will push the plus key to access the first point here and not touch it, so I don't want to move it. And I need to see the input and output values, and I have to invert them now. So I will go with 0 and 23, plus push the plus button to access the next point, exchange those 2 numbers as well, 127 and 118. I will push plus and go to 255 and 225. So I inverted the red channel. Let's go to the next one. The green one, push plus, take the number 0 and output 4, push plus, 127, 106, push plus, and copy that one, 255 to 16. Go to the blue channel, push plus, and it's going to be 0, 51, push plus, 127, 131, push plus, and we go with 255 and 198. 198, like that, like so. So we inverted it, and by having those 2 together, we see that we have the exact same result as before. What we are able to do now is save this grade, and we are exactly going to do that by coming here and being able to save curve preset. It's thinking, but it will allow us. And we will call it grade 1. I will put it there. And before we apply it to another image, let me just quickly degrade a second image, which is going to be this one. And we do the same things. We create a threshold adjustment layer, and we are going to look for the point that is closest to black and gives me the first blob in the image, which is, I guess, somewhere here in this area. Let's find a nice area that is more than just 1 pixel. I guess right here in the middle. Pushing out and shift and clicking here enables me to put a point there. And we will do the same with the highlight. We will just go down, nudge it down until we find a spot that gives us the impression of being more than just a pixel. Go here, take this one. And now that you know that we can find the neutral point as well, we do that right away. Create solid color layer with 50% gray, put it to the mode difference, add a new threshold, and we're going to find from the left side the first thing that gives us the impression of being more than a blob. Something between 7 and 10 as I said earlier, is most of the time the right value. But to be honest, I think finding the neutral point can also be a very subjective matter, so you can also take other points. But that is the one that is the closest to neutral from a mathematical point of view. So let's remove those. We got our 3 points, and we will put the curve adjustment layer there. And we start with the black point, which was here. Let's check it out. We then again take the white point, which appeared to be somewhere here. And we can then take the neutral point, which was told us, which Photoshop told us was here. But to be honest, this doesn't work that well, in my opinion. So we can also try something that should be white, like this, and we will find the right degrade and see the difference. And let's also try auto color. Yeah, and it's close to that. And we can now use our degrade to create the next grade. And we will call that grade 2. And we will start inverting the values again. So go to the red channel, plus, and then we will invert the first values. And it's going to be 0, 42. Push the plus button, go to the midpoint, and we go from 127 to 122. Push plus, and we go from 255 to 216. We go to the green channel, push plus, invert it, 0, 42, push plus, 127, 134, push plus, 255 to 25. We go to the blue channel, push plus, it's going to be 0, 45, push plus, 127, 141, push plus, and one more time, 255, 225. And by doing so, we have the exact same result again. Now, let us save that preset as well. We will save it as grade 2. And now we can move to a third image, but before we do so, let me check if we can arrange the images in a different way, like so. That's actually pretty good. We have this one on the left side, and we have got those two here, so that we can see if we can match the left one to either the one on the bottom and on the top on the right side. Okay, so what we could do now is try auto color and degrade that image. Let's call it auto color. Image auto color. And what it does is, I think it slightly increases the contrast and removes some dust. But I think we can do better with degrading it manually. So let's try. We go with the threshold and we move it to the left. So it's probably going to be down here, the darkest point. Let's zoom out and find the lightest spot. So it's going to be here in the sun, obviously. Let's move in and find something that is better than just a pixel right there. And let's go and search for the neutral point as well. I guess that's probably the road, but let's check it out. So we create a solid color layer, 50% gray, put it to, not there, no, put it to subtract, no, difference, that way, and create a new threshold layer. And we move it all the way to the left and start finding a spot that is somewhere between 8 and 10, 7 and 10. All right, so let's try the bridge. Right there. And there was one more that we could try, that is up here. So we can remove those, set our curve, start creating those points. Let's go there. All right, darkest spot, lightest spot is going to be there. And now let's check out the midpoint, which is here. And I think this result looks fairly better. And we can have that as our D grade and now start applying our own grades to match this image on the left side to those. And we will do that by applying our curves. And we will call this one grade 1. And we will load it from our presets that we just saved, grade 1. And you can see that this image looks pretty much alike to that one. Now we got two options. We can use the normal blend mode, or if we just want to apply the color and leave the tonal values untouched, we can put this to color mode and we can only apply the color scheme that we just degraded or extracted from the other images. That is completely up to you and to your personal preference. I think in this case I like that it also changes the tonal values, and in this case I would leave it like that. So let's create a new one and take the curves, call it grade 2, and check out if we can match it to the image on the upper right. So we go there, take our preset, it's going to be grade 2, and look at that, it matches pretty well. So this is just a starting point, as I said, but we are already pretty close. So you can now go in and tweak the black point even more, or you can do your own tweaks as you like and increase the contrast. You can use also this curve to increase contrast still, and it's all up to you. And I happen to enjoy that very much, to degrade images and all kinds of images that you like. Of course, if that was a grade that was pretty heavily graded and not just with one layer, but you can still take something away from these images and have a starting point and see where to push and pull the curves or the color adjustments to get closer to the look that you aim to copy. And let's also try to put this one to color mode. And you can see that also matches pretty well, but since we have a slightly muted image up there, I would go to normal mode, and you can see that it is pretty much muted, and you can even mute it a little more if you like. You can do something like that and take some highlights out and put some more darkness in, or you can increase the contrast by putting an S-curve there, and it leaves pretty much room for flexibility. So I'd encourage you to just try and do things and put it to your images, and just imagine how much control you will have if you use the power of luminosity masks and you create these sets of like shadows, highlights and midtone folders limited by the luminosity mask, and start applying these grades manually. Or you can combine different grades like we just did. You can, for instance, put one to the highlights, you can put one that you extracted to the shadows, and maybe we just try that for once. So we got that grade, oh sorry, we just keep the D grade. Let me pull this out here, and actually we can close these down. We don't need them anymore, since we want to try something completely new. We have the D grade, and from here I will just create a stamp. let me take my library and put this grading layers here. And let me quickly run my action to create the tonal masks. Oh, I think I now created the German ones. Don't want to confuse you, so let me just go back there, and create the English ones. So it's intersected highlights. Put them there. It's going to be intersected midtones. I'm going to put them here. And it's intersected shadows, and I'm going to put them there. All right. Now I have the groups all set up, and I can move grade 1 to the shadows, and I can move grade 2 to the highlights and activate it. And by doing so, I can put both grades in. See? And this one goes to the highlights. This one goes to the shadows. Or we mix it. Take this one here and this one there. And as I said, this is just the starting point, and you can start mixing different grades that you found from different images, where you might like the tones that were brought to the highlights more, and you can apply those to your image, to the highlights, and you can take a grade that you found from another image where you like the shadows and put those to the shadows of your images, and you can start building up grades that are very unique and very much yours, because you created from scratch and take inspiration from other images. And I want to encourage you to just, start and play with it and be creative and have fun with it.